be any discussion, do you think that you're going to find some of these aldermen that are going to say, geez, maybe it's, treading on our constitutional rights? Do you think any of that conversation is going to come up outside of Sandy Widener, outside of maybe Kerry Glenn, maybe Henry Perez
yeah.
might say something?
You mean like when Foxconn was taking all that property out in Mount Pleasant?
Right.
Following the Constitution.
Or the vetoes that where they were going to, he vetoes and we're not going to stand for this, 250 signatures. Of course, boom, all of a sudden it's a complete turnaround. What do you think? Yeah. Constitutional rights? You think there's any chance that they're going to stand up for constitutional rights?
What are the odds of the city council standing up for our rights? Slim and none, and Slim's out of town. Well, good morning. Welcome back to Talking Racine. I'm Dr. Ken Jorgen. I'm here this morning with Mr. George Myers.
Morning.
Mr. Jim Spodek, our producer.
Morning.
All the usual suspects are present, including yourself. Now, we've got some things we want to talk about today that we think you will find of interest. First, we're going to talk about the body cams policy for law enforcement throughout the county of Racine and, well, through the whole surrounding area, really,
right.
But primarily Racine County. And we got the new revised edition of the body cam policy for the Racine County Sheriff's Department, and we have yet to see the policy for the Racine City Police Department, which we have heard is exemplary, but we have not personally seen it.
Right.
We're looking forward to that. Chief Howell, I believe, is going to be discussing that on the 7th of August. Is that
It's
correct?
the Common Council meeting.
Common Council meeting. So if you're interested in hearing something about that, you'll either go down there or you'll watch it on TV. It is broadcast on cable network, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we looked through the policy as provided to us by Racine County Sheriff's Department, and we've got some questions. I mean, in 2013, Mount Pleasant was the first municipality, local regional municipality, to actually employ body cams, but they had no policy about the use thereof. It's been 6 years now, and we think it's very, very important that there be a unified, a consistent policy throughout the county. So we looked at the one provided by the Racine County Sheriff's Department, and there's, admittedly, we're looking for things that might be problematic. We're glad that the policy is being written, that consideration is being given to this. It was revised just recently, just shortly after the shooting of Tyrese West, in fact. The body cam deployment policy for the Racine Sheriff's Office was revised, and we found a couple of things that we have questions about and we think possibly could be improved.
I'd also like to look at it not just from problematic, but this sounds to me, as I'm reading this, like some really good places to help improve the police department, help learn things about operations and how to change them. As I mentioned earlier with you guys, one of the things that I liken this to is use as an analogy is the airlines. They have these black boxes. Everything is recorded. Everything the pilots say, everything that's going on in the airplane, everything. And remember that one that crashed in the river?
Right, the Hudson River.
In the Hudson River, and the question came up: Was this pilot just reckless? Was this a stupid thing? Why didn't he just go back to the closest airport? There were all kinds of questions about that decision until they started looking at what was going on in the airplane, and they saw all the recordings and listened to everything that he was saying and his co-pilots was saying and the information he was getting from the ground, and found out this guy was a dang hero.
Yeah, well, not just from the ground, but from his instrument board.
Yeah, plus that's what I say. Everything going on in the airplane, everything going on with the co-pilot, all the conversation going on in the airplane, plus his communication with the ground. And I remember, some
he
of the
could have
comments.
been hung out to dry.
Yeah, he could have been. But the point was, and the airlines have to do this because they don't want people coming afraid to fly. So they have a vested interest in monitoring everything that's going on, and so that they can improve it and say, here was the problem, here was the instrument thing they have, and in that case, I think some birds had flown into into one of the jets, you know, and that's what caused the whole thing. It had nothing to do with pilot error, and so people say, okay, well, we can fly it. That's 1 in a million. That's less than a chance of lightning, you know.
Right.
So the thing is that they have a vested interest in that, and unfortunately, the police do not have that kind of vested interest. I mean, if they can screw up, and we're going to put up with it, and we're going to continue on. Whereas if you know, the airlines, if people quit flying, guess what? They're out of business. So they have a
you buy a ticket by choice. You don't.
That's right.
You don't
You're not
hire
forced to do
policemen
it. You
by
don't lose
choice.
your house if you don't buy a ticket to the airplane.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is when I read these things, I'm seeing some things that are left out that I think are real opportunities to improve police performance. And they should be using it. They should be interested in doing it.
Should be involved.
If I go to page 7, I just to get a little more specific here. These are exceptions to recordings that's in this policy, and one of them is tactics being utilized during an event. You'd think that would have everybody's monitor would get on, you know. Have you have you ever seen Hard to Kill or any of those like that? I mean, you want to know everything that's going on, all the conversations going on, all the timings there. So when it's all over and done with, you can learn and say, hey, here's what could have improved that.
Yep.
This one move here might have made a difference, you know. So I would say when it comes to tactics being utilized during an event or other general conversations may be muted, keep it on. These conversations that go on, that would be like the pilot with his co-pilot.
Exactly.
We want those conversations, and the pilot with the ground control. We want to know everything that was going on, what was being said, what was happening, the exact time it was happening, so that we can become better at our profession and do a better job in handling really tricky situations.
Right. And I think Doc brought up a good point. It's been 6 years since body cams were introduced to the Mount Pleasant. Technology has moved at lightning speed. There's no reason not to have a body cam on 24/7 when you're on that job.
You know, particularly when it comes to storing this data. Back when I was doing videotapes, I'd do a videotape of an apartment. I had this big closet full of videotapes.
Right.
I videotape all these apartments, and I have to index it. Now, man, you have a terabyte.
Data
little box
storage
this
and
big,
record-keeping
data storage.
it's
You
much easier.
can store it for cheap to nothing, and
the amount of data you can store is
and you
massive.
can
Just
massive
absolutely
amounts,
massive.
and then after it's been there for a
So
while,
the
you know
arguments
we're
that
not
they've
interested.
had on this, my argument is, in Mount Pleasant, you just spent $1 billion on Foxconn. You can't find data storage for and body
That's
cams.
how much storage for $10,000.
You know, we find out what our priorities are. You know,
Well, and there's a couple of things here, like only officers that have received the prescribed training will be assigned or permitted to wear a body-worn camera. Well, let's make sure that everybody's trained then. I don't want to have something
what training do you have to have?
Wait a second. How about the
I
new
just trained
guys
them.
so that you can follow what he did and maybe make some corrective action and say, you know, go back and read this part of your manual. You missed something over here in chapter 2. You know, that's the those are the people you definitely want to have the body cams on.
Exactly.
Well, there's just a couple of things in here where the policy can be fudged a little bit, if you know what I mean, and I'd like to see that those things are corrected. You know, we don't want loopholes.
And I think it's the approach you're taking to it. If you're going to take this as an approach to monitoring the cops, you know, where we're going to make sure that they aren't doing bad things or something like that, that's a bunch of garbage. If you're going to go at that thing, now you got to have all these controls.
Well,
but let's look at it like the airlines do it. Let's look at it the way the airlines. We want to make sure that our equipment's working properly, that communication channels are working right, that people have things when they need it, and the body cams in tricky situations will cover all that. I see a police stop for it's obviously speeding. It's on Main Street or something, and there's 3 squads there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, why do you need 3 squads to do a police stop? You know, it's going 40 in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. Now, maybe there's a reason for it, but maybe if they do these studies, they find out, well, really, you know, here was the situation that caused it where we needed 2
You mean a time study, George?
Huh?
You mean a time study?
Yeah,
done with the
well, I'm
county?
just saying it's all there. It's data there to improve services and make the police work better. And I think that's I think that's, if you
Right.
take it that approach, and not that we're, tell the cop we're going to watch you guys because we think that you're doing bad things. If you're going to take that approach,
Right.
now you got to
Right.
protect rights and all that. But if you take the
Well,
approach,
and that creates antagonism between the citizens and the police.
And that's
We don't-
something that you don't
We don't want to
need.
see that.
Right.
I'm
We
looking
wanna-
at it
we
from the
wanna
way the
reduce
airlines, how the airlines have their black boxes,
George,
everything's
they do it in
monitored
any-
because they want to
you go
make
to
it
a bank.
better.
You don't think? I mean, actually, if you're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
buy something, you go to a bank. You're monitored. I mean, you get out of your car, they got a camera on you. You go into the bank, there's multiple cameras on you. Not only that, there are cameras on the teller. All that cash is manipulated through a camera. All of that. That
Let's flash back to car 25.
Yeah.
Who's a friend of ours that was running that station, the public access station that we had here in Racine, or channel. And Mayor Dickert put cameras in there where he could watch the.
watch his employee.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't like the employee, so we're going to watch him.
And
Yeah, but that's the viewpoint that I'm afraid they're
Right,
taking with
right.
these body cameras for the police. Yeah, and that's for people like John Dickert. Okay, maybe that's what they want to use.
Yeah,
it for.
but I mean, the administration would support something like that. But then when it comes to police action, oh no, we don't want to upset the police.
Well, I think there's something in this policy too, where it talks about we don't want it when there's downtime or there's lunch or whatever.
No.
They want to have it on. Well,
who wants to hear about a lunch conversation?
Well, the fact is, I think you keep that body cam on. If you're in that, when you go on in the morning till you punch out at the end of the day.
if
that
you're
body
on
cam-
duty, you should have it on.
You're an employee
Yeah.
of the.
Yeah.
I mean, we have this. We support the badge and all that stuff. And that's all great. But the fact is, you are still an employee. You're an employee of a corporation, really, the Mount Pleasant, the City of Racine, whatever that is. Just like you're an employee of any other company.
Here's an example of why it would be on at lunch. Cop gets a call at lunch, emergency call. How does it get handled?
Yeah.
See, the body's cam off, but if the body's cam on, it's been on during the conversation, and you can go through, okay, here's what he was doing, here's the amount of time it took to get away from lunch, into the car, or whatever. And I'm not saying you would necessarily make him wrong or make him right or anything. All I'm saying is you would have a study, and you know better about,
Right.
and be able to train officers when you're at lunch, blah-de-blah, and you're
Listen,
improving
George,
service. You're
there's
making the
plenty-
police a better operation
It is.
than
It
just
is.
a haphazard type of thing. Well, I want to be a cop, and I've always wanted to be a cop.
You don't think Amazon has cameras on their employees? You think Amazon does
Oh my
not?
God, yeah.
There's probably that thing is loaded with cameras, watching everyone down to your
Doing
bathroom
time
break.
studies and everything. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
that's being done. So we're not asking for anything that's out of bounds.
And it's an important
Absolutely.
aspect of the community existence, more than Amazon.com is.
Well,
It's
absolutely.
important to get our stuff fast, as we can.
exactly.
But sometimes gangbangers on the street is more important than make sure I got my tissue paper from Amazon in time.
You get tissue paper from Amazon? Gee.
I do. You don't? No, don't you?
No, I can't afford the shipping.
Hey, the government pays for it.
Yeah, right. Okay. So anyway, yeah, that's Tuesday, isn't it? August 7th? When,
Oh, it's the 8th. It's the 8th this
Oh, it's
week
the 8th?
because there's a national night out on Tuesday night.
Oh, okay.
So it is on the 8th of.
the Common
of-
Council
of
meeting will be
August.
Wednesday instead of Tuesday.
Correct.
And it's a good opportunity to listen to our chief of police explaining
And,
the policy
and
that's
let's
going on in Racine.
let's get some
Yeah,
let's get
and,
these
and
body
as soon as
cameras
that
in action.
comes
This is
out,
some
we want to get a
high-tech stuff
copy of
that'd
that
be good, yeah.
copy of that body camera policy too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, moving on to something else. Did you want to play a video about the deindustrialization of Racine?
Well,
Deindustrialization. Let's talk about that first. Let's
Yeah.
define that. What
Yeah,
they're talking about
right.
here. You want me to define
Yeah,
it?
define
Okay.
it,
Well,
George.
basically, what you see in the videotape, this guy, I'd like to know who he is and where he's from. Because if he's outside of Racine, it's an amazing observation. It makes it Racine. But he said Racine used to be the titan of industry. He said,
Well, a titan. I mean,
A titan.
he didn't make it sound like Racine was the pinnacle of industrial
I have to
production.
well, we'll see when we say whether
Yeah.
it said A or
Right,
the.
yeah.
But at any rate, it was great for innovation. Employment was going crazy. This was 100 years ago, and he said, "What happened?" He said, "The deindustrialization. Then they go over to present day, where people on the streets, the highest unemployment in the state, and then they." Paying what used to be left Machinery Row, these old buildings. That's what they're called about deindustrialization. And there are cities going through this, and Racine is one of them.
All right.
Doesn't get a lot of attention in the debate about the big, troubled Midwestern economic cities such as Milwaukee or Detroit or Cleveland. Those are among the 50 biggest cities in the nation. Racine isn't, so it doesn't usually get a lot of attention. What's fascinating about Racine, however, is that back in the last century, it was an absolute titan of industry, industrial innovation, and manufacturing. Jobs abounded. Then came one of the most harsh deindustrializations I've ever seen in any American city. And today the city is in many ways more extreme in its poverty and unemployment and single-parent households than even Milwaukee. Racine is getting more attention now because very nearby, just a few miles away, the big Asian electronics manufacturer Foxconn is proposing a mega manufacturing plant. It will be high-tech, it will be a different kind of jobs, but Racine is wondering if it's going to be able to capitalize on any of the big job creation benefits that are going to come out of Foxconn. In the past, in Racine, you've had wars on poverty, national upswings, tech booms, stimulus programs, and they didn't help the city. The city seemed impervious to past attempts to create a new economic upswing. The big question is, will Foxconn
It's
be
an
any
interesting
different?
question. It's one that we've been asking. Is Foxconn really the solution to the economic problems that Racine is suffering with? And how do you feel about that, Jim?
No, I don't think it is at all. I mean, I've seen this where we went through, and he brings up a good point. He brings up, from an outsider looking at Racine, you talk about the dot-com boom, and you talk about these economic changes that happen in the economy in the rest of the country. It's been, and I see the word he uses is impervious to Racine.
Yeah.
We've resisted it well.
We won.
Don't talk about improving me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm right here where I
We've
am.
fought off progress.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, what is that answer? What is it? I don't see any change now, even though we're talking a new administration and all the rest. I don't see any changes that have been made in Racine that's going to create. Foxconn is going to create any difference in Racine.
I think there was a cause to the deindustrialization of Racine. I think it dealt with government and maybe unions. There were some things that kept it down, kept it from improving.
Yeah.
We need to find out what that is, and fortunately, it wasn't Foxconn.
Yep.
And
Foxconn's not going to save us.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting minutes. And the proposal that the RDA has gotten permission from the county to really enter into tax delinquent properties.
Right.
Looking for environmental problems, looking for, I assume there's going to be looking for all kinds of stuff. If they go in there under the guise or under the under the heading of looking for environmental problems, if they find something else, which they're not going to
That's so
ignore.
phony.
Yeah,
Funny.
exactly.
Environmental problems.
But they're walking into people's property without permission.
I know,
Basically, it's a
that's the
violation
thing.
of its
What
constitutional
really
rights.
bothers them is apparently Alderman Laren and Mi'kmaq feel that the order has been changed, that the memorandum has been changed to be only industrial and commercial properties.
Well, they made a motion for it to be changed because it was stated to them that, oh, no, we only mean that to be industrial properties. So they said, well, let's change the wording. And then when it came back, it was the same wording.
Same wording.
And
Any property, not industrial and commercial, any real estate property.
And Mayor Mason now has made a request that the memorandum of understanding between the county and the city and the redevelopment authority be exactly as it was.
Now,
Exactly.
here's important. Folks, this is coming up at the Wednesday meeting, right?
Right.
The one we just talked about. So it's coming up at the Wednesday council meeting. Watch for it. If you're watching it, you can watch it live. Watch for this thing to come up and just see what kind of discussion they have. See if they are truthful about what the memorandum really says, or they're just going to pass on this fake thing that it's been changed to only industrial and commercial.
They've said verbally it's only going to be industrial property. Find out if it's on paper that it's only going to be
Because
industrial.
that's what really counts.
Yeah.
Well, it's not on paper because it would have had to go back to the county. It would have had to get changed at the county. It would have had to been discussed at the county. It would have had to come back to the city. It would have had to go through the RDA, the finance again. None of that happened. It's right here. It talks about just enter any real property, meaning any home, any industrial site, anything.
If you're behind in taxes,
Yep, you're
enough
behind
to
in
have gotten
taxes.
this tax notification, then
Well, that's the way Mayor
you're-
Mason wants it left.
Exactly.
Any
And he
property.
states that that's what he wants. He says the terms and conditions of the memorandum of understanding and all exhibits, they're all to be the same as set forth in a county resolution 219-21. Be
So
approved.
keep an eye on the city council.
Well, here I
and
got a
see if they
question,
stand
though.
up for your rights.
Now that Corey Mason is pushing this through,
He's trying to.
Well-
Hopefully it will go.
oh, it'll go. But that's my thing. But my
Yeah.
question is,
just remember who's on that.
right? Exactly.
We got
It's almost a
Minkma
lockdown.
and Young. They're on there, man. Look out! You know,
We're trying to shame them into doing the right thing here,
there's-
George. You know?
freight train right behind.
What do you
the
think?
engine,
I
man.
mean, how much do you will there be any discussion? Do you think that you're going to find some of these aldermen that are going to say, "Geez, maybe it's treading on our constitutional rights"? Do you think any of that conversation is going to come up outside of Sandy Widener, outside of maybe Kerry Glenn, maybe Henry Perez
yeah.
might say something?
You mean like when Foxconn was taking all that property out in Mount
Right.
Pleasant?
Right.
We're following the Constitution.
Or the vetoes that where they were going to, he vetoes and we're not going to stand for this, 250 signatures, of course, boom, all of a sudden it's a complete turnaround. What do you think?
Yeah.
on that? Constitutional rights, you think there's any chance that they're going to stand up for
Hey,
constitutional
What are
rights?
the odds of the city council standing up for our rights? Slim
What's
and
it,
none, and
slim to
Slim's
none?
out of town. But do the right thing out there. If you're an older person and you're watching this, pay attention to this
Yeah.
thing.
This should have never got this far. Even
No,
on the
heck
county
no.
board, I mean, what the hell? But, it's pushed through,
Well,
nobody
yeah,
asks a
yeah.
question, bang. That's
Yeah, if
what
all you're
happens.
going to do is what the mayor wants to do, then why are you even showing up for the meetings?
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah.
question.
Collect the check.
We need to continue to object, but don't be too surprised when it comes up because all that stuff that went through at Mount Pleasant with taking those people's houses, tearing down those blighted, brand new $500,000 houses,
To save Racine.
that's the type of stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
It's time we changed it.
Well, we could spend just a couple of minutes. Now, you got an article out of the newspaper this morning.
Yeah.
And we don't have time to go into depth in this. We've covered a lot of the background for this in the past.
We need to. Yeah, we
go
need to.
Go ahead and read the headline there.
It's called Falling Through the Cracks. What's happened here is the maintenance lags on Racine's roads because of budget constraints.
It's a Saturday morning paper.
Yes, this is the Saturday morning's paper, and it's just amazing, how we just in Racine just went through this whole process of reducing bulky waste pickup. In other words, you could still get the garbage pickup, but things like chairs and couches, bigger things, you're limited to 4 times a year now, and it's a very slim operation. It barely meets needs. In fact, some of the things they used to pick up, they don't even pick up now. I won't pick up boards and various other things. But the point is the question was asked of the Commissioner of Public Works, Mark Yalen, what are we going to do with those workers? You're going to lay them off? Are we going to at least get a cut in our taxes because we're getting a cut in services? Oh, no. These people are going to go over and they're going to work on the roads. They're going to help
Going to be redeployed.
maintain the road.
Yeah.
So 2 years into the project, all of a sudden, we're really short and we're on being able to fix roads. It's just getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
So after all that to do about we're going to help do these roads, and you're giving up something in the bulky waste pickup, but we're going to make the roads better.
Not so much.
Yeah, not so much.
Yeah. Well, we're going to dive into that a lot
That's
deeper,
a
'cause
lot
there's-
more to this
there's-
story
there's-
than what I just told her. But
I think next week.
there's the tip of the iceberg, folks. That's
Yeah.
the tip of
We're
the
fine.
Coming attractions.
Yeah.
Right. Financial problems.
Well,
Goes
that
deep.
pretty much wraps up what we've got for you this morning. You guys have any further comments? I think we've...
I think nothing right now.
Yeah. So there we go. We want to thank you for being here with us this morning. Please come back next week because we're going to have this other issue that was in the paper and a lot more to talk about. And we appreciate you being here. So have a wonderful day.